pressures of the modern world have most of us wrapped up with everyday worries. And that's why a vacation can be so very important. It allows us to recharge our batteries, rebalance our priorities. Traveling to a culture very different than our own can offer a new perspective. And southern Italy is just what the travel doctor ordered. We'll start here in Naples and check out Pompeii, then head south to stylish Sorrento, travel the thrilling Amalfi Coast Highway, and visit the ancient ruins at Paestum. Cradle of pizza, Caruso, and Sophia Loren, Naples is the kind of place you think about when you think about a real Italian city. It's a place of extremes. Behind me is a bustling piazza, while nearby are some of the great historical sites of the ancient world. Smoldering in the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, Naples is big, crowded, and molto Italiano. The city curves like a theater around its dazzling bay, but it's the city streets that put on the show. Here you can really feel Italy's heartbeat. Over there, a woman is selling the most delicious lemonade, while on that corner, you can buy pizza to die for. Like the volcano in the distance, Naples has a dramatic and slightly dangerous feel. This is Europe's most densely populated city.
Pensiero, la donna immobile, qual più malvento, muta da cento, e di pensiero.
Across frenetic streets, pedestrians dodge Vespas like ducks in a shooting gallery. Naples has an infamous reputation for organized crime. While it's still a bane on Neapolitan society, it's generally not a problem for tourists. Our main concern is pickpockets. In recent years, city leaders have worked hard to make the city safer, but you do still need to be careful. There's an exuberance here and a lust for life that seems uniquely Neapolitan. According to mythology, Naples was built on the grave of a siren. Sirens were sea nymphs who sang to sailors in order to lure them into wrecking their ships against the rocky shoreline. But it's the art and architecture that lure modern travelers. Ancient, medieval, Renaissance. For art history lovers, Naples is bliss. The Cappella San Savero is amazing for the sheer abundance of Baroque decoration. Elaborate and over-the-top, this was built as a burial place for a prominent Neapolitan family in the mid-18th century. It's a fresco and marble extravaganza. The sculptures are remarkable, especially this clinging shroud on an alabaster figure of Christ. Eerily lifelike figures seem to emerge from under transparent veils, and nowhere else will you see an intricate fishing net carved from marble. Casting a heavenly spell over all, the frescoed ceiling beckons us to the gates of paradise. This is a city where religion and superstition are woven deeply into the fabric of life. The Gothic cathedral stands on a spot that's been occupied by religious buildings since ancient times. It's dedicated to San Gennaro, Naples' patron saint. It's the site of a very mysterious Neapolitan ritual. In the chapel, under lock and key, are 2 vials of San Gennaro's dried blood. 3 times a year, Neapolitans gather here to watch the blood liquefy. Legend has it that if the blood doesn't liquefy, disaster will strike the city. Scientists are at a loss to explain this phenomenon.
The Catholic influence here is almost palpable. Everywhere you turn, churches stand as monuments to religious fervor.
When in Naples, there are two absolute must-sees, the National Archaeological Museum and the ruins of Pompeii. We're going to head to Pompeii, then come back to the museum and see the treasures that were recovered from the ruins.
Just 15 miles from Naples, Pompeii is a passport to ancient history. 2,000 years ago, this Roman city was a busy commercial center and resort town with a population of around 20,000.
You probably know the story. One summer day in 79 AD, the sky blackened, the air filled with poisonous clouds, and terror struck the people of Pompeii. Mount Vesuvius erupted, burying Pompeii under a mass of volcanic ash and mud. Men and women, children and animals were stopped suddenly in their tracks.
This is an entire ancient city frozen in time. The vast ruins offer fascinating insights into the life of ancient Romans. It's as if their daily activities were preserved in a time capsule. The Forum was the city's central plaza. Just imagine it glistening in the sunshine, filled with people shopping or listening to political speeches. Some of the private homes have been partially restored. This was a wealthy merchant's house. The interior courtyard and gardens must have been magnificent. The wall paintings and frescoes are especially well preserved. Here's a typical middle-class house. A mosaic just inside the doorway warns, "Cave Canem, beware of dog."
This is the House of the Dancing Faun. It belonged to one of the wealthiest families in Pompeii. It took up an entire city block. 4 dining rooms, 1 for each season, and 2 gardens, a winter garden, and this is the summer garden.
The house is named for the whimsical statue of a faun found in an indoor pond. The original is in the museum in Naples. When the building was excavated in the early 19th century, it was considered a major archaeological event because of the wealth of intact mosaics. Researchers believe that this was home to relatives of Pompeii's military ruler, General Sylla. Because there were no underground sewers, the streets often filled with rainwater and sewage, and people used these raised stepping stones as crosswalks. Vesuvius is still an active volcano. It last erupted in 1944, and locals live in fear of the day the mountain will once again vent its wrath on this countryside.
After walking around all those ancient ruins, I could use a cappuccino. I wonder if there's any place to get a cup of coffee in this country.
Naples' oldest coffee house, Cafe Gambrinus, was the in-place for Neapolitan artists and intellectuals of the last century. The vaulted ceilings and frescoes still emanate old-world elegance. But my eyes are dazzled by the artful display of pastries and gelato. Naples' National Archaeological Museum is considered one of the most important in the world. It's a natural counterpart to Pompeii. This fantastic collection contains works gathered from Pompeii and other cities devastated by Vesuvius, as well as from the ancient city of Rome. It brings antiquity to life. Remember the enormous House of the Faun at Pompeii? This mosaic masterpiece was taken from there. With such a big house, they obviously needed a good-sized floor covering. The mosaic's 19 feet by 10.5 feet, a perfect complement to any living room. It shows Alexander the Great leading his cavalry against the fleeing Persian soldiers. Some of the most touching pieces from Pompeii are the everyday items, such as spoons and mirrors. This glass vase was found in a tomb in Pompeii. It was used to hold wine, and you can see the intricate carving showing small cupids gathering grapes. These statues are Roman copies of works by Greece's great sculptors. Many of them are the sole surviving record of masterpieces that otherwise would have been lost forever. This astonishing sculpture, called the Farnese Bull, was carved from a single block of marble. An easy walk from the museum, Naples' historic quarter, shelters small discoveries around each corner and across every piazza.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno.
Oh, bene. Bene.
Adoro, profumano.
Grazie. Profumero. Sì. One of my favorite finds is the stately Santa Chiara. The Gothic church was built in the early 14th century and holds several tombs of the Angevins, the Frenchmen who ruled Naples for 200 years before being tossed out by the Spanish. After Rome fell and the northern hordes overran the former empire, Europe spent centuries reinventing itself. The Italian peninsula became a conglomeration of city-states at the mercy of larger or more powerful northern nations. In fact, this country didn't become a single nation till well into the 19th century. The best part of Santa Chiara is outside in the cloisters of the Clares. This is quite possibly the most peaceful spot in the city. Strolling through the courtyard's wisteria-lined walkways, you're transported back through the centuries, when these painted Majolica tiles were love letters to this small corner of tranquility. All it takes is a taxi ride to break the tranquil spell. I'm beginning to wonder if Napoli actually means last rites in Italian. I finally discovered why the Italian people are so full of life. It's because with the way they drive, life can end so quickly. So you've got to celebrate every waking moment. My taxi driver certainly has embraced this philosophy. We're heading just out of town to check out one of the area's most volatile sites. West of Naples, hot springs and sulfurous gases rise from an enormous eerie landscape. These are the Phlegraean Fields, or Fields of Fire. This whole area floats freely on a mass of molten lava very close to the surface. The ancients were both frightened and fascinated by it. They believed this to be the gateway to the underworld. Epic poets stood on these very hillsides and conjured images of hell. In fact, I'm sort of frightened and fascinated myself.
Back in the good old days when Imperial Rome reached its prime, the Phlegraean Fields became a fashionable spot for vacation villas. The Roman elite flocked to the posh spas to take in the views and ease their arthritis, which was a common affliction even back then. You can still try out these natural saunas, which were named Purgatory and Hell. This scalding one must be hell. With Hades behind us, we're off in search of a little bit of heaven. Sorrento is just 30 miles south of Naples. You've heard about it, you've read about it, now here it is, Sorrento. The town commands a stunning coastline laced with natural coves. Dozens of 19th century Romantic artists found inspiration in these idyllic surroundings. It's touristy, but in Sorrento, that's not such a bad thing. The town is clean and safe, and most of the clerks speak English. For those who love to shop, there's nowhere better on the coast. Most appealing is the Old Town, where pastel shops line the narrow stone streets. Flowering vines wind over shady paths, and here you may taste some of the best gelato of your life.
Scusi? Man, it is gelato chaos here.
Here's a tip. In most shops, you pay for your ice cream first, then hand your ticket to the person scooping.
Limon, por favore. Limon. Oh, grazie.
Sorrento comes alive on holidays when the town draws Italians and visitors alike. It's a great opportunity for people watching and sampling limoncello.
Now, you might think this is a grapefruit, but it's not. This is a Sorrento grapefruit. This is a Sorrento lemon, a big lemon, and from big lemons come little limoncellos.
Limoncello is a tart and dangerously enticing liqueur made with lemons plucked from the surrounding hillsides. The island of Capri makes an easy day trip from Sorrento. The ferry drops you on Capri's busy Marina Grande. From the marina, you can hop on the funicular, and you'll soar 500 feet up the hill to the town of Capri. It's no secret that Capri is beautiful. In fact, it seems like just about everyone's been here. Caesar Augustus vacationed on the island. Hans Christian Andersen spun tales about it. And Lenin even schooled revolutionaries here. In the summer, boats come and go constantly, emptying hordes of visitors onto the island. It's better to come in spring or fall when you avoid most of the tourist stampede. As enchanting as Capri is, it's only the beginning of southern Italy's natural wonders. We're heading south along the scenic Amalfi coast. As early as the 9th century, Amalfi became an Italian maritime republic, rivaling Venice and other ports for dominance of the sea. Today, the highway that runs along the coast is among the most beautiful and treacherous in the world. Sheer cliffs and hairpin turns create the ultimate in white-knuckle driving. And it seems like Italy's most reckless drivers are around every turn. But oh, what a ride. You can rent a car or even hop on a local bus to take in the awe-inspiring views. Inviting coves rimmed with bright fishing boats and rocky cliffs carved like mythological shapes. If you have an extra day, be sure to check out the ruins of Paestum, about a 2-hour drive from Sorrento. It has some of the best Greek ruins outside of Greece. 600 years before Christ, Greeks colonized this site, calling it the city of Poseidon.
It later fell to the Romans and then other invaders. Eventually, they were all driven out by the fiercest enemy of all, the mosquito. Swarms of the insects made this a very undesirable piece of real estate, and it sat abandoned and undisturbed for hundreds of years.
In the 18th century, a crew of road builders stumbled across the ruins in the middle of a forest. They discovered 3 of the finest intact Greek temples in the world. The oldest predates the Parthenon in Athens by nearly a century. Early archaeologists who first studied the temples misnamed them, but the old names stuck. This so-called Temple of Poseidon was actually dedicated to Zeus's wife, Hera. It's a first-rate example of pure Doric architecture, the oldest of the classical Greek styles. Even under scaffolding, the fluted columns and simple capitals are impressive. Powerful city council members met in this open-air theater to pass laws and elect magistrates. The Greeks and Romans both had a passion for athletic competitions such as swimming. The public pool featured a perilous-looking labyrinth for underwater laps. The country roads leading out of Paestum offer local Italian specialties. Don't miss sampling mozzarella di bufala. It's cheese made of buffalo milk. Molto bene. For our last night, we're heading back up the coast highway. The Amalfi Coast is dotted with sun-bleached towns that cling tenaciously to craggy cliffs. The impossible terrain has inspired some of Italy's most astounding feats of civil engineering. Our final stop is a cliffhanger of a town, Positano. It's thrillingly steep with determined houses that seem to cascade down the hillside to the sea. Instead of streets, the town has a network of steep steps. Positano was once part of the powerful Republic of the Amalfis. Today, its power comes mostly as a chic hangout for the rich and famous. And who wouldn't want to hang out here? Novelist John Steinbeck wrote about it. Positano bites deep. It is a dream place that isn't quite real when you are there and becomes beckoningly real after you have gone. He knew what he was talking about. For a more ethereal perspective, you can take in the views from several trails in the hills high above.
This one is called Pathway of the Gods, and the gods must be very happy with it. They've kept it unspoiled and perfect for thousands of years, and it's waiting for you. From Naples and Amalfi, ciao.